At 12:17 a.m., the star quarterback of Westbridge University stood in his best friend's doorway, soaked from the rain and terrified of saying 3 words that could change everything. Stay with me. Jordan Cole didn't know it yet, but those words were about to divide his life into 2 parts. You've known me for 8 years. I think the permission expired. That is not how doors work. It is how our friendship works. Eli shut the door behind him. He was still wearing his practice clothes. His dark hair was damp, his cheeks slightly red from the cold, and tiny drops of rain clung to his jacket. Jordan looked at him for a moment longer than he should have. Then he forced his eyes back to the laptop. You're soaked. I noticed. You could have changed. I could have. You didn't. No. Jordan shook his head. Brilliant. Eli dropped onto the end of Jordan's bed. Coach kept us late. Saturday's game? Jordan went still. Eli continued. I told myself I come here because you're my best friend. Another step. I told myself I trust you more than anyone. Another. I told myself I just feel comfortable here. Eli's voice became quieter. But that's not why I keep coming back. Jordan's throat tightened. Eli. Eli looked directly into his eyes. I keep coming back because you're here. Jordan couldn't breathe. I don't know when it happened. Eli's voice trembled. Maybe freshman year. Maybe before that. I don't know. Jordan stared at him. But somewhere along the way, you stopped being just my best friend. Silence filled the room. Outside, rain crashed against the glass. Inside, neither of them moved. Eli whispered, You became the person I love. Jordan closed his eyes. For years. For years of silence. For years of pretending. For years of telling himself that wanting his best friend was a mistake. And now the truth was standing directly in front of him. Waiting. Terrified. Hopeful. Jordan opened his eyes. You're not the only one. Eli stopped breathing. What? Jordan's voice shook. You're not the only one who feels this. For a moment Eli simply stared. Then his shoulders dropped, like he'd been carrying something impossibly heavy and had finally been allowed to put it down. Jordan. Jordan smiled through the tears gathering in his eyes. I've loved you for years. Eli stepped closer. So have I. Neither of them knew what would happen next. They didn't know what tomorrow would look like. They didn't know what the team would say. They didn't know what the university would think. They didn't know whether the world would understand. But for the first time in 4 years they knew one thing. Neither of them had imagined it alone. The feeling had always been there, waiting. And that night, in a small dorm room while a storm raged outside, 2 best friends finally stopped running from it. For several seconds after Jordan said it, neither of them moved. The rain continued against the window. A car passed somewhere beyond the dorm, tires hissing over the wet pavement. The clock on Jordan's desk changed from 1:22 to 1:23 a.m., but inside the room, time seemed to stop. Eli stared at Jordan as if he'd just heard something he'd spent years dreaming about and was terrified to believe. You love me. Jordan let out a shaky laugh. I literally just said that. I know. Eli smiled, almost disbelieving. I need to hear it again. Jordan looked at him. I love you, Eli. Eli closed his eyes. For a moment he simply stood there breathing. Then he whispered, God. Jordan smiled nervously. What? I've imagined you saying that so many times. Jordan's smile disappeared. You have. More than I should admit. When? Mostly when I couldn't sleep. Jordan laughed softly. So we're both idiots. Apparently. Eli moved closer. Not quickly. Not dramatically. Just one careful step at a time. When he reached Jordan, he stopped. Their faces were inches apart. Neither one touched the other. The silence suddenly felt different. Not uncomfortable. Expectant. Eli looked into Jordan's eyes. I don't want to mess this up. You won't. You don't know that. I know you. Eli smiled. That's what scares me. Jordan frowned. Why? Because you know everything about me. He paused. And now you know this too. Jordan's expression softened. You don't have to be afraid of me. I've never been afraid of you. Then what? Eli looked down. Losing you. That answer hurt more than Jordan expected. He reached out and took Eli's hand. You're not losing me. Eli looked at their hands. Promise. Jordan nodded. Promise. Eli squeezed his fingers. Okay. He looked up again. Can I kiss you? Jordan's heart raced. You're asking. I want to do this right. Jordan smiled. You've been my best friend for 4 years. 8. Right? 4 years of college. Jordan laughed. 8 years of being annoying. Eli grinned. So? Jordan took one small step closer. You already know the answer. Eli leaned forward. Their lips met. Softly. Carefully. Almost cautiously. It lasted only a few seconds. But when they separated, both of them looked stunned. Jordan touched his lips. Eli laughed under his breath. What? Jordan shook his head. Nothing. You're smiling. So are you. I can't help it. Jordan laughed. Neither of them moved away. Eli leaned in again. This time the kiss lasted longer. Still gentle. Still slow. But there was no uncertainty anymore. Jordan's hand rested against Eli's shoulder. Eli's fingers found the back of Jordan's neck. 4 years of almost. 4 years of stolen glances. 4 years of unfinished sentences. 4 years of wondering. All of it suddenly had somewhere to go. When they finally pulled apart, Eli rested his forehead against Jordan's. I should have done that years ago. Jordan smiled. Probably. Why didn't you tell me? Jordan thought about it. Because I was scared. Of me. No. Jordan looked into his eyes. Of losing you. Eli's expression softened. We really were idiots. Terrible ones. They laughed quietly. Then Eli sat on the edge of the bed. Jordan sat beside him. For a while they simply held hands. There was no need to rush. No need to define everything. They had crossed a line that had existed between them for years. And neither wanted to pretend they could simply step back over it. Eventually Eli asked, Do you remember sophomore year? Jordan laughed. What about it? The Halloween party. Jordan immediately groaned. Oh no. Eli smiled. You went as a detective. You went as a cowboy. It was a good costume. You wore a fake mustache. It was convincing. It fell off into your drink. Eli laughed. That wasn't my fault. You spent 20 minutes looking for it. Because it was a good mustache. Jordan shook his head. Then Eli's expression changed. That was the night I realized. Jordan looked at him. Realized what? That I was jealous. Of who? Your date. Jordan blinked. You mean Sarah? Yes. She wasn't my date. I didn't know that. I told you. You told me she was your friend. She was. I thought you liked her. Jordan laughed. I didn't. I know that now. Eli looked down. But that night, I remember watching you talk to her and thinking. He paused. I don't want anyone else getting that version of you. Jordan's heart softened. You were jealous. Very. You hid it well. I punched a wall. Jordan stared. You did what? I said I was jealous. You said you had a bad game of darts. I was lying. Jordan burst out laughing. Eli joined him. Their laughter filled the small room. And somehow that laughter made everything less frightening. The truth wasn't destroying their friendship. It was changing it. Maybe that was different. Maybe change didn't always mean loss. After a while, Eli became quiet. Can I tell you something else? Sure. I've been scared about this for a long time. Jordan nodded. Because of football? Partly. Eli leaned back. When you're the quarterback, people think they know you. Jordan listened. They expect you to be tough, confident, certain. They joke about dating girls. They talk about who they're seeing. Everything feels like some performance. He rubbed his palms together. And I started wondering if there was something wrong with me because I didn't feel the way everyone expected me to. Jordan gently said, "There isn't anything wrong with you. I know that now. Mostly because of you." Jordan shook his head. You figured that out yourself. Maybe. Eli smiled. But you made it easier. Jordan looked away. I'm glad. Eli nudged his shoulder. You're going to have to stop doing that. Doing what? Looking away every time I say something emotional. Jordan smiled. I'm not used to you saying emotional things. Neither am I. They sat in silence. Then Eli asked, So what are we? Jordan thought about it. Two idiots who kissed. Eli laughed. That's accurate. Maybe best friends who are figuring something out. Also accurate. Maybe. Jordan hesitated. Eli waited. Maybe we're together. The smile that appeared on Eli's face was impossible to hide. Together. Jordan nodded. Yeah. Eli looked down at their hands. I like that. Me too. Outside, the storm continued, but neither of them cared anymore. Eli glanced at the clock. Jordan groaned. You have practice at 6. I know. You're going to regret this. I already don't. Jordan smiled. You need sleep. So do you. Eli stood and looked around. Where am I sleeping? Jordan pointed toward the small futon. You said you didn't want that. I changed my mind. Jordan laughed. You're impossible. Eli picked up a blanket. Then he stopped. Actually. Jordan looked at him. What? Eli smiled shyly. Can I stay here? Jordan's heart warmed. You already asked. I know. And I already said yes. Eli nodded. Right? He smiled. Just making sure. They settled onto the bed. There wasn't much room. They had shared beds before after late-night study sessions and road trips. But tonight felt completely different. Eli lay on his side. Jordan faced him. For several minutes they said nothing. Then Eli whispered, Jordan. Yeah. I'm still trying to believe this is real. Jordan smiled. Me too. Eli reached for his hand beneath the blanket. Their fingers intertwined. I'm glad you told me. Jordan's eyes softened. I'm glad you stayed. Eli smiled. Me too. The rain became softer. The storm slowly moved away from campus. Jordan listened to Eli's breathing as sleep began to take over. Just before he drifted off, Eli whispered one last thing. I've got you. Jordan closed his eyes. For the first time in years, he believed it completely. Morning arrived quietly. Gray light slipped through the blinds. Jordan woke first. For a moment, he didn't remember where he was. Then he felt the warmth beside him. Eli. His arm was loosely around Jordan's waist. Jordan smiled. He carefully turned. Eli was still without the football uniform, without the confident expression, without thousands of people watching him. He looked younger. Almost like the 14-year-old boy Jordan had met all those years ago. Jordan reached up and brushed a strand of hair from Eli's forehead. Eli opened his eyes. Morning. Jordan smiled. Morning. Eli stared at him for a few seconds. Then he smiled. Still here. Jordan laughed. Where else would I be? I don't know. Eli rubbed his eyes. I was worried I'd wake up and discover I dreamed the whole thing. You didn't. Good. He smiled. Then he leaned forward and kissed Jordan's forehead. The gesture was so simple that it almost hurt. Jordan whispered, "You're going to practice smelling like my shampoo." Eli froze. "That's bad." Jordan laughed. "Very. My teammates are going to know." "Maybe." Eli stared at the ceiling. "I'm doomed." Jordan smiled. "You're the star quarterback." "Exactly. I have a reputation." "A reputation for smelling like lavender?" Eli laughed. "Don't tell anyone." Jordan grinned. "No promises." Eli turned toward him. "There's something I need to tell you." Jordan's smile faded. "What?" "I'm scared about what happens next." Jordan nodded. "So am I. I don't want to hide you. You don't have to. But I'm not ready to tell everyone tomorrow." "I don't expect you to." Eli looked relieved. "I want to do this right." Jordan squeezed his hand. "We don't have to announce anything." "Okay. We can take our time." Eli smiled. "Slowly. Slowly. Together. Together." Eli kissed him once more. Then he climbed out of bed. "Now I have to go get yelled at by Coach." Jordan laughed. "Good luck." Eli opened the door. Then he turned around. "Jordan." "Yeah." "I love you." Jordan smiled. "I love you too." Eli left. Jordan sat there for several seconds after the door closed. The room was quiet again, but it didn't feel empty anymore. Something had changed. Not just between them. Inside Jordan. For years, he'd believed loving Eli meant risking everything. Now he was beginning to understand something different. Sometimes the greatest risk wasn't admitting how you felt. Sometimes it was spending your entire life pretending you didn't. And neither of them wanted to pretend anymore. By Monday morning, Jordan had discovered something terrifying. Being in love with your best friend was easy. Figuring out what to do about it was not. The weekend had passed in a strange, beautiful blur. They hadn't made any grand announcement. They hadn't changed their relationship status online. They hadn't even told their closest friends. For 2 days, they simply existed in the quiet space they'd created between them. Coffee before class. A walk across campus. A movie in Jordan's dorm. Long conversations that kept turning into comfortable silences. And every time Jordan looked at Eli, he had to remind himself that this was real. Eli was really his. Not in the possessive sense. Not like something he owned. But in the simple, terrifying sense that Eli had chosen him. After 8 years of friendship, for years of unspoken feelings, and one rainy night, they had finally stopped pretending. Still, Monday morning brought them back to reality. Eli had football practice. Jordan had classes. The university had thousands of people. And people noticed things. Especially when those things involved the school's star quarterback. Jordan was walking across the main quad when his phone buzzed. "Eli, where are you?" Jordan smiled. "Jordan, economics." 3 seconds later. "Eli, I hate economics." "Jordan, you don't even take economics." "Eli, exactly." Jordan laughed. Another message appeared. "Eli, lunch?" "Jordan, you have practice." "Eli, lunch is before practice." "Jordan, you're obsessed with me." There was a pause. Then, "Eli, extremely." Jordan stared at the screen, smiling like an idiot. "Jordan." He looked up. His classmate Rebecca was standing beside him. "You okay?" "Yeah." "You're smiling." "Am I?" "Like you've just won the lottery." Jordan quickly put his phone away. "Nothing." Rebecca narrowed her eyes. "Aha." Jordan walked away before she could ask another question. But the problem was that he couldn't stop smiling. And Eli wasn't much better. At lunch, they sat across from each other in the student dining hall. They tried to act normal. They failed. Eli kept looking at Jordan. Jordan kept catching him. Eventually Jordan whispered, "Stop." "Stop what?" Staring. I'm not staring. You've looked at me 6 times. 7. Jordan laughed. You're impossible. I missed you. We saw each other this morning. That was 3 hours ago. You're dramatic. Eli smiled. You like it. Jordan did. More than he wanted to admit. Then someone dropped into the seat beside Eli. Marcus Reed. One of Westbridge's starting wide receivers. Marcus looked at Eli. Then Jordan. Then Eli again. He raised an eyebrow. You two okay? Jordan nearly choked on his drink. Eli remained surprisingly calm. Why? You're acting weird. We're always weird. Marcus laughed. True. He opened his lunch. For the next 10 minutes, they talked about Saturday's game. But Jordan couldn't relax. Every time Marcus looked at them, Jordan wondered if he'd noticed something. Finally, Marcus stood. I'll see you at practice. Eli nodded. Marcus walked away. Jordan exhaled. Eli noticed. You okay? I thought he knew. Eli smiled. Maybe he does. Jordan stared. What? Eli shrugged. People aren't stupid. Jordan looked down. I don't want this to become gossip. It won't. You can't know that. No. Eli reached across the table. His fingers touched Jordan's hand for just a second. But whatever happens, we'll handle it. Jordan nodded. That afternoon, Eli went to practice. Jordan went to the library. Everything seemed normal, until his phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Eli. It was a campus sports account. Someone had posted a photograph. Jordan opened it. His stomach dropped. The picture had been taken 2 days earlier. Eli and Jordan were walking across campus. They weren't kissing. They weren't holding hands. But they were close. Very close. And Eli was looking at Jordan in a way that was impossible to misunderstand if you knew what you were looking for. The caption read, Westbridge QB Eli Martinez and his mystery favorite person? Jordan stared at the screen. Within minutes, comments began appearing. Some were harmless. Some were joking. Some were supportive. Others were cruel. Jordan's hands went cold. He called Eli. No answer. He called again. Still nothing. Practice. Of course. Jordan stared at the photograph. He wondered how quickly a private moment could become public. How quickly something beautiful could become something everyone wanted to discuss. Then his phone rang. Eli. Jordan answered immediately. Hey! I saw it. Jordan closed his eyes. I'm sorry. Why are you apologizing? Because this is happening. Eli was quiet. Then he said, Where are you? Library. Stay there. Eli. Please. 20 minutes later, Eli walked into the library. He was still wearing practice clothes. His hair was damp with sweat. He looked angry. Not at Jordan. At the situation. He sat beside him. Show me. Jordan handed him the phone. Eli read the comments. His jaw tightened. This is ridiculous. Jordan looked at him. What are we going to do? Eli stared at the screen. I don't know. Jordan swallowed. You don't have to say anything. I know. You don't have to defend me. I know. You can deny it. Eli immediately looked at him. No. Jordan blinked. No. But you're not ready. I may not be ready to tell the entire world. Eli took his hand. But I'm not going to pretend you're not important to me. Jordan looked at their hands. What if it changes football? It might. What if your teammates don't accept it? Some might not. What if scouts? Jordan. Eli squeezed his hand. I've spent years worrying about what everyone else might think. He looked into Jordan's eyes. I'm tired. Jordan's eyes filled with tears. Eli continued, I don't want to spend the rest of my life being afraid of my own happiness. Jordan whispered, You're sure? Eli smiled. I've never been more sure of anything. That evening, Eli went back to his dorm. Jordan stayed behind. Around midnight, his phone buzzed. A message. From Eli. I'm going to say something tomorrow. Jordan stared at the screen. Are you sure? The reply came almost immediately. Yes. Jordan typed. Whatever happens, I'm here. Eli replied. The next morning, Westbridge woke up and... I said yes. What did he say? Then focus on football. Jordan smiled. That's it. That's it. And your teammates? Marcus hugged me. Jordan laughed. Seriously? Seriously? What about everyone else? Eli shrugged. Some were surprised. Anyone say anything bad? Not to my face. Jordan looked down. Eli reached for his hand. You know what Marcus said? What? He said, about time. Jordan laughed. Everyone knew? Apparently. Eli shook his head. I spent years terrified of something everyone else had already figured out. Jordan leaned against his shoulder. You were scared because it mattered. Eli kissed the top of his head. Yeah. For a while they sat quietly. Then Eli whispered, I don't want to hide anymore. Jordan looked up. You don't have to. Eli smiled. Not even a little? Jordan shook his head. Not even a little. Eli leaned closer. Their foreheads touched. Then he whispered the same word he'd said on that rainy night. Stay. Jordan smiled. I told you. What? I'm not going anywhere. Eli closed his eyes. For the first time, the word didn't sound like fear. Sounded like home. Saturday arrived. The stadium was packed. Thousands of fans filled the seats. The game was being televised nationally. Eli stood on the field during warm-ups. Jordan watched from the stands. Before kickoff, Eli looked up. He found him. Their eyes met. Eli smiled. Jordan smiled back. Then the whistle blew. The game was intense. Westbridge fell behind early. But Eli never panicked. He played with a calmness Jordan hadn't seen before. By the fourth quarter, Westbridge had tied the score. 30 seconds remained. Fourth down. The entire stadium stood. Eli walked onto the field. The crowd thundered. He looked toward the sideline, then toward the stands. He found Jordan. For 1 second, the noise disappeared. Eli smiled. Then he turned back to the field. The snap came. He dropped back. Pressure rushed toward him. He stepped left. A defender came within inches. Eli released the ball. It traveled through the cold night air. For 1 terrifying second, it looked too high. Then Marcus caught it. Touchdown. The stadium erupted. Players rushed toward Eli. But Eli barely celebrated. He ran straight toward the stands. Jordan stood. Eli reached him. Neither cared about the cameras. Neither cared about the crowd. They hugged. And for the first time, Jordan realized something. Their story wasn't ending because people had found out. It was beginning. The secret was gone. The fear was still there. But now they were facing it together. And sometimes that was what love really meant. Not being fearless. Just refusing to run away when fear told you to. The strange thing about being honest was that the world didn't end. Jordan had expected something dramatic. A scandal. Confrontation. A phone call from the university. Maybe even a moment when Eli would wake up and decide he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. Instead, Monday morning arrived like every other Monday. The coffee shop opened at 7. Students complained about assignments. Professors hurried across campus with folders tucked under their arms. The football team practiced. Classes continued. People still worried about grades, rent, relationships, and whether the dining hall had finally figured out how to cook decent eggs. The world kept moving. And yet, for Jordan, everything felt different. Because he and Eli were no longer pretending. They could walk across campus together. They could sit beside each other at lunch. They could laugh without constantly wondering who was watching. They could hold hands. Not always. Not everywhere. But sometimes. And those little moments meant more than Jordan expected. One afternoon, they were walking through the student center when Eli reached for his hand. Jordan looked down. Then at Eli. "You sure?" Eli smiled. "I'm sure." They continued walking. A few students looked. One smiled. Another whispered something to a friend. Jordan felt his shoulders tense. Eli noticed. "You okay?" "Yeah." "You're lying." Jordan laughed. "Maybe a little." Eli squeezed his hand. "Look at me." Jordan did. "You don't have to be comfortable immediately." At first, Eli avoided answering. Not because he was ashamed, because he wanted to protect what they had. Then one afternoon, a reporter asked him directly, "Eli, you've become something of a role model for young athletes who may be struggling with their identity. Do you feel any responsibility for that?" Eli paused. Jordan watched from across the room. Then Eli answered, "I don't think I'm responsible for anyone else's story." The reporter waited. "But I know what it feels like to be afraid of being honest." Eli took a breath. "And if someone sees me and realizes they aren't alone, then I'm grateful." The room became quiet. Eli continued, "I spent years thinking being strong meant never being afraid." He smiled. "Turns out, being strong sometimes means admitting that you are." Jordan felt tears sting his eyes. That evening, when they were alone, Jordan said, "You were amazing." Eli smiled. "I was terrified. You didn't look it." "I was." Jordan laughed. "Good. Good. Means you're human." Eli pulled him closer. "Only around you." Jordan rested his head against Eli's chest. "I like you human. I'll remember that." Their relationship became easier with time. Not perfect. Just easier. There were arguments. Of course there were. Sometimes Eli's schedule became overwhelming. Sometimes Jordan felt ignored. Sometimes Jordan's fear returned. Sometimes Eli became so focused on football that he forgot the rest of his life existed. One evening, they had their first serious argument. Jordan stood in the apartment doorway. "You promised you'd call." "I know." "You said you'd be home at 8. "I know." "It's midnight." Eli rubbed his face. "Practice ran late." "You could have texted." "I should have." Jordan looked away. "That's all I wanted." "I know." Silence. Eli stepped closer. "I messed up." Jordan nodded. "You did." "I'll do better." "You don't have to be perfect." Eli looked at him. "I know." "You just have to remember I'm here." "I do." "Sometimes I don't feel like it." That hurt Eli. Jordan saw it immediately. "I'm sorry." "No." Eli shook his head. "Don't apologize for telling me." He stepped closer. "You deserve to feel important." Jordan's eyes softened. "So do you." Eli took his hand. "I don't want football to become more important than us." "It won't." "You can't promise that." Eli looked at him. "I can promise I'll keep choosing you." Jordan smiled. "That I can believe." They hugged. The argument didn't disappear, but neither did they. And that was something Jordan had never understood before. Healthy love wasn't the absence of difficult moments. It was knowing that difficult moments didn't have to become endings. Months passed. Winter arrived. The football season ended. Westbridge made the playoffs. They lost in the semifinal. The loss devastated Eli. He sat alone in the locker room long after everyone else had left. Jordan found him there. Eli didn't look up. I should have made that throw. Jordan sat beside him. You played your heart out. That doesn't change the result. No. Jordan paused. But losing doesn't make you a failure. Eli stared at the floor. I let everyone down. Everyone. My team. They'll recover. Coach. He knows what kind of season you had. The fans. They'll find another game to talk about. Eli finally looked at Jordan. And you? Jordan smiled. You didn't let me down. Eli's eyes filled with emotion. Jordan continued. I don't love you because you win games. I know. I don't love you because you're the quarterback. I know. I love you because you're Eli. Eli looked away. A tear slipped down his cheek. Jordan reached over and wiped it away. Eli laughed quietly. I hate losing. I know. I hate crying. I know. I hate that you always know. Jordan smiled. You love that. Eli looked at him. Yeah. He leaned forward and rested his forehead against Jordan's. Stay. Jordan smiled. Always. The season ended. The campus became quieter. Students left for winter break. The football field stood empty beneath the cold Pennsylvania sky. One evening, Eli and Jordan walked through campus together. Their hands were intertwined. No hiding. No pretending. No checking who was watching. Jordan looked at him. Remember our first night? Eli smiled. The rain. The rain. The dorm. The door. Eli nodded. And the word. Stay. Eli stopped walking. Jordan turned toward him. Eli smiled. You know what I thought that night? What? I thought if you said no, my entire life would fall apart. Jordan's expression softened. And now? Eli looked around the quiet campus. Now I realize my life didn't fall apart. He took Jordan's hand. It finally started making sense. Jordan smiled. Eli leaned closer. No storm. No storm. No fear. Still some fear. Eli laughed. Okay, a little fear. Jordan smiled. But we're still here. Eli kissed his forehead. That's all I need. They continued walking. Behind them, the football stadium lights slowly turned off one by one. Ahead of them, the campus disappeared into the quiet winter night. Neither knew exactly what the future would bring. Eli had professional scouts watching him. Jordan had plans for graduate school. Their lives were about to change again. But this time, they weren't facing change alone. And for two people who had spent years terrified of losing each other, that was enough. Because love hadn't made their lives perfect. It had simply made them honest. And sometimes honesty was the bravest beginning of all. 1 year later, Jordan returned to Pennsylvania on a Friday evening. The campus looked almost exactly the same. The brick buildings. The old library. The coffee shop where Eli used to complain about early classes. The football stadium rising above everything like a monument to all the years they'd spent there. But Jordan had changed. They were no longer college kids trying to understand what they were feeling. Remember how terrified you were? I was terrified. You looked like you were about to faint. I thought you were going to reject me. I almost did. Eli's eyes widened. What? Jordan laughed. Not really. Don't joke about that. Sorry. Eli shook his head. For years. Jordan nodded. For years. They began walking again. Eventually, they reached the small diner 2 blocks from campus. The same diner. The same red booths. The same neon sign in the window. Jordan smiled. You remember? Pancakes. Obviously. They sat in their old booth. The waitress recognized them. Back again. Eli smiled. Couldn't stay away. They ordered pancakes. For a few minutes, they talked about ordinary things. Football, work, travel, friends. Then Eli became quiet. Jordan noticed. What? Eli looked down at the table. Nothing. Jordan smiled. You're lying. Eli laughed. You really haven't changed. Neither have you. Eli took a breath, then looked at Jordan. I've been thinking about something. Should I be worried? No. Eli smiled. Actually, I think you might like it. Jordan raised an eyebrow. Go on. Eli reached across the table. He took Jordan's hand. I used to think the biggest moment of my life would be winning a championship. Jordan smiled. And now? Now I don't think that anymore. Jordan waited. Eli's expression became serious. I think the biggest moment was standing in your doorway that night. Jordan's heart tightened. The storm. The storm. Eli smiled. I used to think the storm gave me courage. Jordan shook his head. It didn't. No. Eli squeezed his hand. I was already in love with you. Jordan's eyes softened. I know. I was already choosing you. Jordan smiled. I know. The storm just gave me an excuse to stop being a coward. Jordan laughed softly. You were never a coward. I was. You were scared. Same thing sometimes. No. Jordan shook his head. Being scared isn't cowardice. Eli looked at him. Then what is it? Being human. The waitress arrived with their pancakes. Neither noticed. They were too busy looking at each other. After she left, Eli smiled. There's something else. Jordan's heart began beating faster. What? Eli took a breath, then said the words without hesitation. I love you. Jordan smiled. I love you too. No. Eli shook his head. Let me finish. Jordan laughed. Okay. Eli looked directly into his eyes. I love you when you're far away. Jordan's smile softened. I love you when we're arguing. I love you when football is going well. I love you when you're frustrated. I love you when you're scared. Eli's voice became quieter. And I love you when nothing special is happening. Jordan's eyes filled with tears. Eli continued. I think that's the part one understand now. He smiled. Love isn't always the big moment. Jordan squeezed his hand. Sometimes it's pancakes. Eli laughed. Exactly. Sometimes it's coffee. Sometimes it's arguing over laundry. Sometimes it's waiting for a flight. Sometimes it's just sitting in silence. Jordan smiled. And sometimes it's staying. Eli's expression softened. That word. Jordan nodded. Still means everything. Outside, rain began tapping against the windows. Jordan looked toward the glass, then at Eli. You've got to be kidding. Eli laughed. Apparently our story isn't finished with rain. The rain grew heavier. They finished their pancakes, then walked outside beneath the diner awning. The street glistened beneath the lamps. Eli looked up at the sky, then back at Jordan. You know what? What? I don't need the storm anymore. Jordan smiled. I know. Eli stepped closer. I don't need an excuse. Jordan nodded. You don't. Eli reached for his hand. I choose you. Jordan's eyes filled with tears. Every time. Every time. They kissed beneath the awning. No secret. No fear. No hesitation. Just two people who had spent years learning how to be honest with each other. The rain fell around them, but it didn't feel like the beginning anymore. It felt like a reminder of the night when everything had changed. A reminder of two scared young men standing in a dorm room, wondering whether telling the truth would destroy everything. They had been wrong. The truth hadn't destroyed them. It had freed them. Years later, Jordan would still remember that first night whenever it rained. He would remember Eli standing at the door, the nervous expression, the shaking hands, the whisper, "Stay." But he would also remember everything that came afterward, the difficult conversations, the fear, the football games, the long-distance calls, the arguments, the victories, the losses, the quiet mornings, the pancakes, the ordinary moments, because that's what made their love real. Not one dramatic night, not one perfect kiss, not one declaration, thousands of small choices, every day. Again and again. Choose. Stay. Try. Forgive. Listen. Love. That was what they had learned. Love wasn't a storm. The storm was only the excuse. The real story had always been two people who were terrified of losing each other and finally realized that silence was the thing putting them at risk. Eli looked at Jordan. "You cold?" "A little." Eli took off his jacket and wrapped it around him. Jordan smiled. "You're going to freeze. I'll survive." Star quarterback sacrifices jacket for boyfriend. Heroic. Jordan laughed. They started walking. Halfway down the street, Eli stopped. Jordan turned. "What?" Eli looked at him with the same expression he'd worn years earlier. Only now there was no fear behind it. "Stay." Jordan smiled. "I am." Eli shook his head. "No." He stepped closer. "I mean, stay with me." Jordan took his hand. "Always." And this time, there was no storm loud enough to drown out the answer, because they weren't two boys standing at the beginning of something they didn't understand anymore. They were two men who had survived the fear, two best friends who had become something more, two people who had finally learned that sometimes the person you've been searching for isn't waiting somewhere in the future. Sometimes they've been standing beside you all along, waiting for you to be brave enough to look at them. Jordan looked at Eli. Eli smiled. And together they walked into the rain, not running from it, not hiding from it, just walking forward, together. Because the storm had never been the reason they stayed. They stayed because they loved each other, and that was more powerful than any storm could ever be.